Happy Sunday. I hope you're having a great weekend. It's Sunday, July 20th, 2025. You're watching the DMZ America Podcast, and coming to you from the left, I am editorial cartoonist Ted Rall.
And I am editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis, coming to you from the right. So here we are, right now, right here in America, Sunday. It's Sunday in America. Our president has really fat ankles.
And do you know where your God is? I guess if you went to Mass this morning, you do know where your God is.
I did.
Maybe you're still there. If you're one of those Protestants with your long services. That was the worst thing about the Reformation. Today we're going to be talking about the Biden Gate stuff. It's become an auto pen controversy. We're going to get into Russia Gate second. Then we'll talk about Stephen Colbert. Was it really about money, or was it really about politics? We're going to go into the budget cuts of NPR and PBS public broadcasting. So that's a full slate. And anything else we feel like talking about, especially if you're on YouTube, but also if you're on Rumble, please feel free to pipe in with questions and comments, and we'll try to get back to you. But we'll certainly we can pop them on the screen on YouTube, and we can just read them from Rumble. So if you have a question that you want Scott or myself or both of us to address, please feel free. All right, let's get into the auto pen stuff.
Oh my God, Ted, what a story! Ted, go ahead. You
Well, so basically, look, right now there is currently a partisan investigation, but there wouldn't be any investigation whatsoever if the Democrats were still in power. That's just the nature of these things. The party, the party that's in power punishes the party that was in power for their previous crimes. And since we don't have divided government, that's what's happening now. So Anthony Bernal and Deputy Chief of Staff under Biden, Annie Tomasini, who were both kind of parts of what Jake Tapper's book and other people inside the administration called the Politburo under Biden, which is basically a cabal of 5 to 7 White House.
They didn't use the word in the good way.
Right. Basically, who surrounded the president and basically protected him and covered for him, and to some extent were running the United States of America for him. Anyway, they all went before the House Oversight Committee, where they were asked about Biden's physical and mental health. Rather than answer any questions, the doctor, Biden's physician, not a great doctor by any account, he first pled doctor-patient confidentiality. Okay, that's reasonably fair on its face, except of course the former president could have decided to just like roll with it and let that and just say, well, I'll let you release this information about me, but he chose not to do that. And then he also took the Fifth as well. Scott, the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects us from we don't have to self-incriminate. If a police officer pulls you over and says, hey, did you rob that bank? You don't have to answer. The only sort of exception is an FBI federal investigation. You can
plead the Fifth. I'm pretty sure you can plead the Fifth there too, but you have to implicitly say, I plead the Fifth.
Okay, I guess, yeah, you can't just sort of refuse to answer. With a cop, you could refuse to answer and just say, fuck off. But, okay, so here we go. There's no law against what these guys are accused of doing, right? I mean, these guys are running interference, protecting the president, disguising the fact that he was mentally ill, declining, demented, however you want to put it, and physically not up to his job. All of the above, which you and I have talked about since he was running for president in the primaries here on the podcast and elsewhere in our cartoons and so on. We won't get back into the fact that we were repeatedly ridiculed, lambasted, marginalized, and otherwise treated like dog shit over this. We've forgiven all of you. And if you hear a flamethrower, Joan, not mine. So
yes.
So, but the point in your rearview mirror, flamethrowers in the mirror in the rearview mirror may be closer than they appear. So I mean, but there's no law, right? Do you think there's? I mean, what are they scared of? Are they just showing contempt for the process, or are they really truly? Do they think they're in legal jeopardy?
Ted, I have to be honest. We should have, and maybe next podcast we'll have our friend Ricardo Aparicio, who is a lawyer and is, while not technically a constitutional lawyer, he really is profoundly interested in that study, and he just got admitted into the Supreme Court bar, so he's probably better equipped to handle the legalese of this. Was there a law, an existing law, that they broke by committing what amounts to a coup d'etat? Did you hear? He did not say it. By the way, he didn't say it in front of a camera, which is telling. Joe Biden, former president of the United States, or so they tell him, did you hear his comment? I authorized all the signatures. There's how many of them? Thousands of them?
There's 27,000.
Yeah. Bullshit. You have to call bullshit when it's bullshit, and that's
the White House Counsel's office has ordered the National Archives to cough up 27,000 documents signed by Biden, many of them by auto pen. Now, the previous presidents have used the auto pen of both parties. Sure. And normally, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but my understanding is the typical use of this is when the president is away from the White House or someplace or there's a document comes in and they can't, in many cases, a document can be sent, obviously, by email or fax or whatever to wherever the president is. But in some cases, it can't, or there's just, we need to do this quickly. We have to, whatever. So
let's say it's Ted, to be just interject, it could be like a proclamation declaring, National Asphalt Day. He doesn't need to sign. He doesn't. It's not important. Signs enough.
It's not important enough, right? So basically, good point. So, but basically, these documents are signed by a machine, and if you don't know what an auto pen is, it's basically back in the old days until email, when you sent a letter to the White House, let's say. And you got a letter back from the White House from the president. It was auto pen signed, right? Like the president and the first lady, thank you for your letter and your support.
Sure,
you're awesome, Joe Biden. And so he used this. Obviously, when he was in Delaware, he would call up and say, "Yeah, go ahead and sign that for me, no problem." But he apparently used it a lot, or I should say, it was used a lot.
Right. The numbers are
White House.
Well over 90% of all the documents were.
So we're talking about bills, policy statements, executive orders,
pardons. But the one that's most disturbing is the pardons, because there were a crap ton of pardons, and he didn't sign many of them himself.
No, and so he, even by his own admission, he kind of knew that there was a category of people that he approved of pardoning, but this isn't a broad category. Like, for example, Jimmy Carter, when he first became president in 1977, one of his first acts was to pardon the Vietnam draft dodgers who had fled to Canada and other places. He issued a proclamation and just basically said, you're all pardoned, right? If you dipped during the Vietnam War, no problem. It was well defined. Everybody, there was no confusion about who was covered. That's not really quite the case here. I mean, so basically it was kind of like people, it reminds me of the Herb Block Foundation, which is a cartooning, institution that was funded by the late cartoonist Herb Block. And Herb wasn't very specific about how to define the terms of the foundation that was funded with about $50 million. He just sort of said, do things that support cartooning that I would have liked. Well, that's subject to a lot of interpretation. And and similarly, Joe Biden was kind of like, pardon people who I would have wanted to see pardoned, basically. That's a lot of latitude about some important stuff that he gave to his aides. And now there's the question of whether these people ought to have been pardoned. And there's the constitutional question as to whether these auto pen signed documents are valid. I've been doing some reading on that.
Oh, what do you think? What's your conclusion?
Well, it looks like they're valid. And it's not, they shouldn't be, it doesn't make sense. So, lawmakers don't always think of everything. if they had, we wouldn't need to pass new laws.
Right.
I think about the guy in Germany who, put out an ad on the internet saying, "Hey, come over to my house and I'll kill you and eat you." Well, even under German law, there was no that action is not illegal. So they had to pass a law. Oh, people do that. Okay, we're gonna. So here, so apparently, it never occurred to anyone because basically, this goes back to like monarchy, right? The king, the sovereign, signs a document, and that's what gives it the power of law.
Right.
The Americans, we've inherited that system. So the president or the governor or the mayor or whatever signs a document, and that's when it's enforced. The auto pen came into being, and it was deemed to be by policymakers enforced. The thing is, if it's enforced with the will of the sovereign, in this case the president, that's okay, I guess. The problem is nobody ever thought of a situation like this where you'd have Weekend at Bernie's. The president's not all there. And and then like Aide Ted and Aide Scott are like, hey, we're going to declare, National Cartoonist. It's our awesome day. And we're going to have a giant statue of my cat Clovis built in the Washington Mall. It's like, and we're going to declare
which would
war
be cool, by the way.
against Latvia just because. There's just like, it never occurred to them to anyone that could happen. But that appears to be kind of what's happened in the last 4 years.
Yeah, clearly that's what happened. And you and I were bitching and moaning and stomping and drawing about this very issue, that this was a coup d'etat. This is the very definition of a coup d'etat, and they definitely did it. And now the documentation coming out that Joe Biden didn't know what the hell he was signing, or that documents were signed. They say he always approved all of the signings. The guy didn't know that underwear went under the pants some days. You could tell. So don't tell me that he was cognizant of every signature that was on every document. Now, granted, listen, you and I both know that job. You talk about the letters that go back to, some school, some class in Ohio. And there's a person, hey, thank you for writing. I really can continue being interested in civics. Love, President Biden.
Right.
And it's signed. And so, the kids are thrilled. Everyone's thrilled, but it's not his actual signature. I think it would be interesting. Two things I wanted to backtrack on that you talked on. First and foremost is the hearings. You and I both called for hearings, but we both also knew that the hearings would devolve quickly into the bullshittery that they will have already devolved into, which is this partisan. It would have been great if someone on the Republican side had said, can we be grown-ups for once and just try? Because this is too important not to act like buffoons. Well, no. Other thing
is this administration doing that in any respect?
No, God, no, not the administration, but this is Congress.
Same thing now.
And it's also the Justice Department but as you say, have any laws been broken? Potentially Biden invited someone over so he could kill them and eat them. It's kind of this feels like the same thing.
This should be illegal, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It should be very illegal.
But you touched on something. I was going to connect the dots that you laid out, Ted. And one was when you started is that many of his aides, his doctor, I'm not sure, is Jill in on the pleading the fifth bandwagon?
She hasn't been dragged. I don't know if she's been subpoenaed yet or if she will be.
The fact of the matter is that they're pleading the fifth, and even liberal commentators are going, that's a really bad look when, if you truly believed what you were telling us, which was that Joe Biden was just fine, had good days, a few bad ones, but mostly good, which of course we all know is complete hogwash. If you can't have a good day when you're in a presidential debate, then you don't have any good days. Okay. That just does not happen. But pleading the fifth is just the optics of that are terrible. And to your point, Ted, it also tells me that potentially there are laws that were broken, and that certainly the attorneys for these people feel that some laws could be broken. They could be prosecuted. Hence, you plead the fifth, and you avoid false testimony, which is a good thing. I just want to jump on our bandwagon one last time. I'm sure the listeners, both of them, of this podcast are tired of us crowing about how we were right about this one, but we were right about this one. We were more right than even we thought we were, Ted.
Yeah, no, look, we smelled a rat. Little did we know how big and actually it had a lot of cousins. That was a big family. Rats don't travel alone.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's bad, right? So, I mean, basically, it looks like here. I'm going to quote from the Washington Post. An anonymous Biden ally is how the person is characterized, and they say they're kind of explaining the Democratic stance here. This DOJ isn't normal. These times aren't normal, and because of that, people are going to take different approaches. Some might speak to the committee. Others may invoke their Fifth Amendment rights. But none of it changes the fact that this investigation isn't about oversight. It's about political retribution. And so basically they say they're concerned, the people who are taking the Fifth, that somehow they might end up walking into a trap that would end up getting them prosecuted maybe for something else. Because as we point out, there's nothing, even if they're completely guilty of what we think, it's not against the law. And it ought to be, but it doesn't appear to be. I mean, it's not really a criminal issue, right? I mean, it's a political issue. It
is now, yes, but
they installed a president knowing that he wasn't all there, and then kept him in office for 4 years as he got worse and worse.
Yeah.
And tried to re-up for another 4 years. I mean, that's what this is about. And really, you shouldn't need a law. It should be like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, right and wrong. Such an old fashioned. You're such an old fashioned boy, Ted.
I know. Clearly.
But also, I mean, okay, I'm going to jump to another. We told you so, but Russiagate, which you'd think, being the righty, I would be like thrilled to death that this was a thing, and in fact. Full disclosure here, I have a number of cartoons where I actually pushed the Russiagate probe and Russiagate's narrative, then came to actually do research and read about it and understand that it was complete and utter and thorough bullshit. The Columbia Journalism Review, a highly regarded chronicle of journalism, came out with a long story about how the New York Times knew that the Russiagate story was bullshit and yet continued to publish stories about it. And they continue to do it. It's simply, we have people we work with. There are editorial cartoonists who still believe this story is absolutely true. And we are fools to believe that it is not true. Now, granted, we don't hate Donald Trump the way these cartoonists hate him, which is with a blind rage of, I can't even explain the level of obsessive hatred for this guy. I don't like him. I dislike Donald Trump for a myriad of reasons. We could do a whole podcast.
Me too. Most of them about policy. Not
all of them. I'd say most. I think temperament. I think temperamentally he's wrong for the job.
It's atrocious. Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, the policies are more atrocious because he's not a conservative. But that's another podcast. But the Russiagate. Now, did you read the story that's been coming out? The leaks that are coming out today. Are you sitting down, Ted?
I am sitting down. You knew that already.
I'm not sure. Because I'm looking right at you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Now, how do you do this? Is it Saint President Obama or is it President Saint Obama? I'm trying to think how do your Democratic friends put this? Because
probably
the main line,
maybe Pope Obama. Popama.
Because the people who, the main line, and yes, it sounds like heroin because it is, the main line Democrats who love Obama. Well, it's turning out that the constitutional expert-y former president helped push the Russiagate narrative. And he was part and parcel and told his minions to continue to push what they all knew was bullshit. I mean, Jesus H. Christ. I cannot for a moment think of what it took, the cojones to, and it tells you about the cynicism. These people who love us as their own children, Ted, they, although they'll send our jobs overseas and they'll do everything they can to fuck us over. But by Jove, they love us. And at the end of the day, that these people knew that the mainstream media would continue to report a story they knew to be false, and that their minions would continue to consume the story and think that it was true. I mean,
I have lots of very well-educated, better educated than either of us friends who
that's a pretty low bar for me.
And for me.
You have a degree.
Not anymore, I don't. Don't forget.
Oh, right. Your college is no longer accredited.
I went to Columbia University Beauty School. So, yeah. That's right. I'm a high school graduate for now until they take that away. You know that's coming next. Then I'll be like, well, I'm a proud graduate of Dwight L. Barnes Junior High School. So until they take that away.
Yeah, anyway. Until they take that away.
Yeah.
And then it's the elementary school, which was Tober Elementary.
First they came for the bachelor's degrees. Then they...
I said nothing. Then they came for the associate degrees.
So then they came for the certificates. So anyway, I think we need to recap sort of what's going on here, right?
Go ahead.
So basically, Russiagate was the assertion that the Russian Federation under President Vladimir Putin basically influenced the American presidential election in 2016 and did so in a number of ways, mainly by hacking into voting systems, but also by running ads on social media in favor of Trump against Hillary Clinton. That's basically it. Also that they tried to hack into the DNC servers and leaked all of the DNC documents to WikiLeaks, which then posted them, and that created a rift within the Democratic Party as Bernie Sanders supporters discovered the lengths of perfidy to which the DNC had gone in order to sandbag Bernie Sanders. So as it turns out, basically we now know that the CIA, when they say, whether they have a level of confidence, they'll say we have high confidence about this assessment, or no confidence, or low confidence, or middle. They said they had no confidence in the Steele dossier, which claimed, among other things, that Trump had a predilection for watching prostitutes pee on a bed in front of him in Moscow. That wasn't true. That didn't happen. The Steele dossier, Christopher Steele, who gathered the Steele dossier, said, I have no confidence in any of this information being true. I was asked to do Oppo research and find out every accusation I could against Donald Trump. And so I compiled them. This isn't intel. This is just a collection of everything that might or might not be true that's bad about Donald Trump. And so anyway, it turns out that what did the Russians really do? I mean, there's no question that by the election, Putin really did prefer that Trump win for the simple reason that he was terrified of Hillary Clinton. He thought, and it was the assessment inside the Kremlin, that she was psychotic and planned to start World War III. There's a piece in Foreign Policy magazine from back in 2016, not a left-wing rag, where they interviewed top generals in the Kremlin, and they said, we're just scared of her. She runs off at the mouth. We don't think she wants to have a working relationship with us. We think she wants to attack us. And so Putin had his opinion. The question is, did he do anything about it? And there's no evidence whatsoever that he did.
Didn't they spend $100,000 on?
Yes. So a company called the Internet Research Agency, a private company that, as far as we know, had no connection whatsoever to the Russian government, right? So they say a Russian company. That's true. There are many. There are tens of thousands of Russian companies that are not related to the Russian government. This was one of them. It's a clickbait farm. And they published on Facebook a total of between $100,000 and $200,000 worth of ads in 2016 meant to generate clicks. 90+% of them had nothing to do with politics, unrelated, like cat videos or whatever. Then the tiny percentage of them that were political, actually they were more pro-Hillary ads than there were Trump ads. It was a minute drop in the bucket, kind of like a test kind of thing. Like putting your little toe into the water. We're talking about a fraction of $100,000 in a $7 billion campaign. Yeah. Now, it had no impact. It was the assessment of the intelligence community that this little tiny affair had zero impact on the American presidential or state or local elections. And that's the truth. That was always the truth. But Hillary and then Biden promoted this narrative for years that Trump was a stooge of the Russian Federation. It drove the already kind of insane Donald Trump even more insane, where he was like basically trying to disprove a negative. And he spent a lot of time working on this, and it made him really vengeful. And part of what we're seeing now, I'm not saying it's right, but it's understandable, is him getting even with the people who did this. Now, and it's still ongoing. And then we had that letter from the 51 former intelligence officials who said it's our judgment that this has all the hallmarks. Remember, this was the Hunter Biden laptop. They said the Hunter Biden laptop
didn't exist. Remember that?
Doesn't exist and has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. It's all been cooked up by the FSB, which is the successor to the KGB, in order to make Biden look bad. I mean, that laptop had thousands and thousands of files on it. It was 100% legitimate. We all know that the laptop was real. Everything on it was real. All the gross photos we saw were real. And so this has been an ongoing thing. Now the CIA has revisited this. They're not really, the CIA is not a wholly owned subsidiary of the Trump administration. It's the deepest of the deep state. And they came out and they're like, no, there was never anything here. I don't think it's going to make any difference. I don't think it'll change any minds whatsoever.
The one thing that's going to change is that if this information about Obama is true, that he was one of the people behind the scenes pushing this narrative, it diminishes his image, I think, even more. In my mind, he's already going to go down. How's he going to go down in history as one of the best presidents? Don't you love it when you hear that one? That's not true. He's going to go down as a pretty mediocre president. Obamacare was a big win, but
that's it.
That's pretty much it. And
seriously, what else is there?
He kept us involved in two stupid ass wars. He kept throwing human lives down the crapper because he didn't want to be perceived as weak. Yep. But if he's involved in this in any way, if there is a smoking gun, let's face it, we're looking at media outlets that are reporting this, whether or not it's true. You and I both know that this story can fall apart very quickly. But if it turns out to be true, his standing in history is going to be lower even more so. He's going to go from mediocre to shitty.
Obama's quite the little conniver, isn't he? Right?
He's sort of like Madison. Madison Monroe.
He sunk the knife into Joe Biden at the end, which, by the way, good for him, but it should have happened a long time ago. And he sunk the knife in 2016, Ted, when he picked Hillary over Joe Biden.
True. And Joe Biden had served as vice president.
And that drove Joe Biden crazy.
Well, and why wouldn't it? You're the vice president of the United States, and all of a sudden they say, Joe, can you sit this one out?
Yeah, let the ladies have a turn.
Yeah. Hillary, because you know what happens to people who cross Hillary.
That's a good point.
It'd be a damn shame if you ended up on a park bench. That's all we're saying.
With your brains blown out. Yeah.
So we've got that's bullshit. We've got pleading the fifth for the Biden investigation. Again, I really do wish that a sober statesman like, remember the Watergate hearings? The Republicans never groused about the hearings being unfair because they dragged on so damn long. They went deep into the information. They let witnesses speak. They didn't castigate them. They didn't make fun of them. They didn't say they weren't churlish. It was those of us who
it was very civilized, actually.
Ted, what's the word I'm looking for guys like you and me who during that summer of Summer of Not Love, would run home to watch the hearings on, and
Dorks?
this is, yeah, that's it, dorks. And so we'd run home, and I did. I know you did too. Ran home to watch these hearings almost every day.
They were riveting.
But they were very dry, and they were very serious. That's the key word here: serious. There are no serious people around anymore. Speaking of not serious people, I'm dying to know, because you and I haven't spoken since the news broke of Colbert being canceled by CBS.
Right.
Now, CBS wants, just to get a quick background here, Colbert's show is number one in its time slot.
It is.
But that doesn't seem to matter to broadcasters. A dear friend of ours, Ted knows her. She's one of my very good friends. Patty Vasquez had an evening program on WGN Radio, the legendary radio station in Chicago, and it ran from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. It was by far the number one show in the time slot. Ted, it's the only number one show they had. But if you asked management there, you know where this is going. If you ask management there, well, when they were giving her shit for various reasons, you'd say, she's the number one show in her time slot. And they'd go, oh, well, that's because of that time slot. And just going,
not that time slot. No.
Well, it doesn't matter. What the hell are you talking about?
Who cares? She's still number one. She's
your only number one show you have. The only one.
Yeah, well, that's like when they fired the editorial cartoonist, who's the only person who brought a newspaper a Pulitzer Prize, and they fired them anyway. When I got fired from KFI Radio, I was top rated in my time slot, and far and away. Explain
that to me.
And they fired me because they said I was too. The talk radio was inherently conservative. Liberals, lefties, couldn't do well, and I'm like, but my time slot was previously filled with conservatives, and I do better than them. And then they replaced me with a conservative, Marsha Clark, the OJ prosecutor, who was as good a radio host as she was a prosecutor. She did a lot worse than me. I think she had like 1/6 of my ratings. It was like fell off a cliff. They didn't, to their credit, they did bring me back for a little while and admitted they were wrong. And it was kind of funny. But I mean, yeah, no, that can happen. I mean, I did a dive into this. Their cover here at CBS, which is owned by Paramount.
They want to be owned by Paramount. There's a merger.
Right. The merger is currently
bubbling.
Pending. The Trump administration has to approve it. Trump obviously doesn't care for Stephen Colbert. And so the speculation here is that Paramount, which just paid $16 million to Trump to settle a defamation lawsuit over a 60-minute segment, that they almost certainly would have beat Trump at if they'd persisted. Yeah. Instead, they decided to come out of their foxhole and basically throw the game like they were the Chicago White Sox in 1919, is it?
Yeah, 1919. Wow. Oh, my God. Ted got a sports metaphor correct.
Thank you. And
give that man a man card.
So anyway, they rolled over and gave him $16 million that they didn't need to, because they want that merger to get approved by the FTC, right? So that's what this is all about. Now they're like, maybe in order to further grease the skids with the FTC in the same way that we're seeing Columbia University and all these other institutions, big law firms, Paul Weiss, caving into Trump, they're like, okay, well, we'll just get rid of Colbert at Trump's request. That's the speculation. On the other hand, late night television is expensive.
Which is weird because why?
Well, apparently, first of all, I looked into this. So a show like Colbert, it operates out of a big theater on Broadway. It has 200 plus employees full time. They have they have to pay a lot of salaries. They pay for guests. They build elaborate sets. So all of this stuff is expensive. So, and of course, obviously, a guy like Colbert makes a lot of money. So
it makes between 15 and 20 million a year.
So apparently, the show costs $60 million a year to make, but only generates $40 million in revenues. But it does have the highest ratings. Now, so basically, I guess the question, you could say it's a lost leader. It may just be that late night television is no longer really a very viable format. I don't know.
that's what the powers that be at CBS are saying. You can
because they're eliminating the show entirely. It's not going to be Colbert. It's like literally the Late Show's going away.
I think the Late Show with Rall and Stantis would be a winner, and we would take a fraction of what Colbert was being paid.
100%.
Colbert takes a plane back home to Chicago every night from New York City.
Colbert? Okay,
every night.
That might explain some of the. They're like living like. Have you heard about this new book about Condé Nast? Like how they were living? I sent you.
Yeah, go ahead but tell our listeners, please.
Well, basically, so Condé Nast in their heyday, they owned titles like Vanity Fair and Vogue and so on, and they basically were living the highest of all depraved high life. If you watch The Devil Wears Prada, which is sort of a roman à clef about Anna Wintour, the editor of Vogue, you sort of get a little taste of it, but that's nothing, right? They describe things like the editor of Vanity Fair refusing to carry his briefcase from the car, the chauffeur-driven car, to the lobby of the building, or back out at the end of the day. And like they're all flying first class all the time. Everything's completely depraved. They're only eating
legendary lunches with a bill somewhere could be in the area of $10,000. I'm not kidding. Or exaggerating.
In the 90s, right?
Yeah. That was a lot of money.
So shockingly, they ran into financial trouble. Who could see that coming? And anyway, but that's kind of like what Colbert's doing. He flies home to Chicago. I didn't know he lived in Chicago.
I didn't either.
He was a New Yorker.
Well, before the Troubles, Bill Cosby would be wherever he was performing. And I saw him, like I said, before the Troubles, performing in Las Vegas. He flew back to Massachusetts every night.
Wow. So that's like Trump. Like Trump always wants to be he always wanted to be at Trump Tower, always, until, he ran into the legal issues in New York that made him think that he might end up warming the inside of a cell at Rikers. So he decided that Mar-a-Lago was where he'd rather spend more time. And sometimes he goes to Bedminster Golf Club in Jersey. But
Ted and I have no inside information on this. But we've observed media for decades. So I can tell you this. I believe what happened to Stephen Colbert, and then we can move on to other subjects. But what happened to Colbert at CBS, it's probably a 50-50 thing. Okay. He and his show was extremely expensive. Late night advertising, like all advertising for terrestrial television, is going down the crapper. People would much prefer to watch YouTube and stream.
Yeah, TV profits, I looked this up, for broadcast are down over 9% over last year. And
you've got to know that's compounded year after year after year after
Correct.
year. So Tim, do the math, folks. Couple that with the fact that the Trump administration had to hate Colbert because the Colbert Show, frankly, it was a liberal talking points. It just kind of made me crazy, Ted, because I remember Johnny Carson. And again, I'm an old man, but Carson's political humor was always making fun of the person. It was never, I couldn't tell you what Carson was. He never went to fundraisers. He never said I'm a Republican or a Democrat.
He was interviewed about that, and you can see a clip. It's floating around social media about it now on X, where he talks about, like, he's asked, well, what are your politics? Why don't you ever talk about politics on your show? And he's like, I will never do that. It's I think it's bad entertainment.
Well, my point would be, why? Why would you risk that? Why would you alienate 50% of your audience? It made no sense to me. So
I don't think it makes sense either.
So Colbert did do that. Every show was, there would be and literally a speech. And
Letterman, I don't really know what Letterman's politics were.
No, well, yeah, I don't know that he ever participated in any political events either. He did participate in some political activities, but they were mostly connected with comedy and with actors and comedians' rights. I think that the Colbert kerfuffle is a mix. CBS they want to consummate they want to fall into bed with Paramount. Paramount desperately wants them. So that's and it's going to have to be approved by the Trump Justice Department, and that the sharp mental tack that is Bondi. And couple that with the fact that it is extremely expensive to have that show. Although it seems to me, if Stephen Colbert truly loved the working men and women of this world, he could take a 50% cut in pay, and they could pay the staff like a decent
Right. Well, that would
salary,
be,
and the show could continue.
Well, right. Well, I mean, that's what Keanu Reeves does, right? I mean, Keanu Reeves, he does this on the down low, but in feature films, his rate is where between $10 and $20 million. But he doesn't need or want that much money. So he literally redistributes it evenly, well, sort of more to the lowest paid cast members, like, the key grips and people who I don't know what they do. And basically, the people you see at the end of the credits.
Wow.
And he famously lines their pockets, and he'll take a tiny fraction, like $500,000 of what he's due.
Wow.
He just doesn't want it. It would he's already rich. It would needlessly complicate his life. He thinks it's the right thing to do. And
yeah, but he's a rarity. I mean, I think I told you the story. I was speaking with a friend's kid who interned on a large concert promoters company, and he said he got to sit on a conference call, negotiating with a Bruce Springsteen concert, and Bruce Springsteen was grousing that he needed an additional $200,000, and he was already being paid a 7-figure to perform. Uh-huh. And he was already making or guaranteed 7 figures. And this wasn't an agent, Ted. This is Bruce fucking Springsteen saying, "Bruce need money."
Well, Bruce is a greedy dude, and the problem here is it goes against brand, right? Like if it's Kid Rock, who granted doesn't have the talent of Bruce Springsteen's pinky finger, but Kid Rock's a right winger. If he's going for the green, that's fine. But Mr. Working Class Man from Asbury Park, New Jersey, that's a bad brand. Stephen Colbert, I think he made his bones with the Colbert Report, where he's making fun of being like a right wing pompous ass right winger, right? Who basically is, and I think he missed the joke. He thought that the effect of that was to make fun of the right. I think the effect of it was to make fun of partisanship and to always have the same opinion no matter what. And to me, the satire, it lands almost as much on someone like Rachel Maddow, who's always got the same talking point or something. And so to me, when he went to the Late Show and basically became the very kind of hack that he was making fun of on the Colbert Report, he lost me, and I assume he lost other people too.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. He lost 50%. There is I'm doing air quotes here, always effective on the podcast. There is a conservative late night show with comedy, and it's Gutfeld. By far the number one show in that slot.
Yeah, it's Gutfeld on Fox.
Yeah.
And it's not. I have to say, I actually think he is a funny man. I watch the Fox show, The Five, at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Fox, and almost every day. And he's one of the highlights. I don't think his show is very good.
No, well,
I don't think humor is good when it's partisan.
It's got to be the roll of the eyes and the throwing your shoulders up at everybody. It's got to be everybody.
Which is, by the way, if you think about the awesome humor of the heyday of TV humor, the Rowan Martin's Laugh-In, Hee Haw, the Carol Burnett Show, and then on in the films like Kentucky Fried Movie, that stuff, or George Carlin, they made fun of liberals and conservatives both equally, mercilessly.
Mercilessly being the number one point. Speaking of lack of humor, public broadcasting just got gutted. Ted and I talked about this yesterday, actually, and I mentioned that I'd been advocating for defunding public broadcasting since I started cartooning back in the late 70s. But it won't be for the reason you think. It's because I happen to enjoy a lot of public broadcasting, not as much as I used to, because they've had budget cuts and they don't do, I don't think, the job they used to do. But regardless, I want their budgets to be cut and removed from the federal budget altogether, because there was always a target of Republican speaking points. It seemed to me like an easy punching bag. And, if you really thought that these or NPR and PBS should survive, let them survive on their own. It's interesting, like Ted, where you are in New York City, the New York NPR station, but in the public broadcasting too, is about 2% or less of their budget comes from the federal government. So you can get rid of 2%. You and I could both live on 2% less. We wouldn't like it.
It's no big deal.
Yeah, but here in Alabama, for instance, the radio, just the NPR station here, is losing 10% of its funding. That's a hit, and quite frankly, can I go off on a tangent here and talk about things I've never talked about publicly? Well, I don't care what you say, Ted. I'm doing it anyway. but you will find this interesting.
When have I ever stopped you? Who could stop you?
It's true. Who could? I'm a force of nature. They don't have, the NPR station here has very little of any public programming. Local programming rather. When I moved back here, my wife and I, we owned a house. My son is here. My grandson is here. That's why we moved back after my stint up in Chicago for a decade. We moved back here, and I approached the radio station and said, listen, I have this idea for a show, locally generated. I will find, you don't have to shell out one red cent when they were still making, cents. I will find the people to underwrite the program. You guys just give me a place to do it and give me a studio and a producer. They said, no. Free programming. What's that? No, they just said, no, we just don't think that fits into our programming. I'm like, you don't fucking have any. How can this, you can't not fit into something that doesn't exist. And I was also looking at creating like a roundtable, like a weekly political show to talk about Alabama politics. All of it being
very good idea.
Again, I know I could find people to underwrite it and make it worth my while. They said no.
Do you think it's because you're conservative?
Yes, because I have a record in the community from my drawing. I worked with the Birmingham News for 13 years and drew for them and have a very deep record of my politics, which I thought were, pretty moderate, really, given where I lived. And I really did go after Republicans as much as I went after Democrats. I approached WBHM about, they had an opening for remember I talked to you about this once, Ted, you may not remember. They had an opening for the morning news desk, and so it'd be, there's following NPR news, there's a 3-minute slot for local news. And you say, today the Gulf of America has flooded up halfway up the state of Alabama. And I know I could do that. And so I approached the news director and say, I saw the posting for the job. Tell me more about it. He literally said, it's not for you. I'm just saying, here's someone who has a fairly decent track record in journalism, Ted. Okay. I think we can say that about my career.
Sure.
Coming to public radio in central Alabama, again, would probably be a pretty good story for them, but they were not interested. Okay. That's my rant. I'm done.
I'm sorry. I think that's disgusting. And I don't think that, I don't think a liberal would have been treated the same. I have to be objective of that. And, and that's Birmingham, right? Yes. If a Republican can't get a fair shake in Birmingham, Alabama, where the fuck can he? It's literally the most conservative state in the union.
Yeah,
we're Mississippi.
We're pretty much neck and neck. We're going to have Governor Tommy fucking Tuberville, for Christ's sake. Come on. So they're losing WBHM, NPR station here in Birmingham, Alabama, is losing 10% of its funding. Where this hurts and where these cuts are potentially, I would venture to use the word dangerous. There's a rural station. The most glaring and the biggest example is in central Alaska. It's the only broadcast entity in the entire region. So if, let's say, there's an attack of ice monsters from the north, no one will know. Right. But in all seriousness, when there's something serious, the bears will. Oh my God, they're organized.
Well, actually, the bears are terrifying. So yeah.
Oh, polar bears particularly are.
Yeah, it's not like
crazy.
If you endangered their cubs. No. The men, the girls, the cubs, they're hungry for you as a person.
Yes.
and they want to eat you. It's not like the shark, like, oh, my bad. No, it's like, no. Like, you're food. You're good.
You're a big bag of meat to polar bears, and it's the only thing they eat, by the way. They don't eat berries. So that is 100%. That station I mentioned in Central Alaska is 100% funded by the federal government. There are other stations
in the plain states, right, where there's tornadoes, and there's already a major local news deserts in those states because, basically video killed the radio star, and like they literally, like in the song, have robot stations that literally you'll drive by and you'll see that old-fashioned 1940s radio station. This is KAWA, the voice of Piscataway or whatever, and it's like but it's in the middle of nowhere, and there's literally no one there. It's surrounded by a fence. It's all auto. Someone comes and checks on it like once a week to make sure the power's on, but no one's there. And
no rats have eaten through the power lines.
Not yet, exactly. And then a tornado comes through. There's no one, there's no one there who knows it and puts it on the air. The NPR station's, in many cases, the only game in town.
Yeah. So this is why this is important and why I care. And the other thing.
Let's get you on the record. Cuts, yay or nay?
I'd say yay, but I'd be very interested to know the economics of public broadcasting, because there is the umbrella company that owns or runs Sesame Street, the Children's Television Workshop. They bring in hundreds of millions of dollars in ancillary sales. When you see a little kid carrying an Elmo doll or, a Big Bird lunchbox, all that money went somewhere. Where'd it go, folks? And Ted and I also mentioned, Ted, could you tell the listeners, you were on an NPR show in New York, the midday host, if you don't already know, if you can't already guess, didn't make a lot of money. They weren't the morning show guys, the Ted and Scott Morning Zoo. Waka, 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 waka. And those guys made $1 million each. And sometimes the afternoon drive time guy got $900,000. But the NPR person, midday, Ted Rall's on their show. Ted Rall, his name, and how much did he make?
Brian Lehrer makes over $600,000 a year.
Jesus.
And like the thing is, and I don't fault anyone for making as much as they can. And he's a really very good host. But that said, I mean, honestly, Scott, you and I are as good as he is, and we do the same gig for 100, and it's like they're begging for donor money. That's the issue here. Like, it's sort of like when I was in Afghanistan and I checked into a 5-star hotel. I tried to check into a 5-star hotel. It was booked with Doctors Without Borders. And I'm like, not without reservations, right? And I was like, okay. And they were like, well, and I met some of these guys and they're like, well, we're out doing God's work, like, helping people in a war zone. I'm like, God bless you, but you're using donor money. I mean, can't you stay at the 3-star hotel? It's lovely. It has air conditioning. It has Wi-Fi. It's the food's good. It's comfortable. Go there. It's like, I mean, I'm not saying they have to live in squalor. I'm not saying Brian should make like $20,000 a year, but I mean, come on. He earns more money than the president of the United States. That's fucked up. And it's public funding, like from the taxpayer and from the listeners. That's wrong.
So to your point, Ted, this is me being small c conservative and being, a bit of I'm not wishy-washy. I wanted the funding to go away, but they should have gone through and said, okay, these stations in, like I mentioned, in Alaska, in the Dakotas, in Montana, in Wyoming, if they had said, okay, these get some funding until they can find another source, give it, say for 2 years. That's plenty of time for you to search around and say, okay, who else can support this? Can the state of Alaska pay for the broadcast for the NPR station in Central Alaska? The same holds true for the other places I mentioned. That's what I would have done. But cutting the funding makes all the sense in the world. And
but Scott, all big countries have state media.
I know, and they suck. And I don't.
Really? The BBC sucks?
Well, do you think it's
Do you think the Australian
nonpartisan?
Broadcasting Corporation sucks? You think this Canadian Broadcasting Corporation sucks? I don't.
Well, I would ask that is it biased though? I mean, because bias?
Because human beings are running it.
Yeah.
So definitely biased.
So I think there's a definite bias in something that's state run defending the state.
Right.
That's what I meant by stuck.
If you're going to be part, if we think that we're involved in part in an international I'd rather be involved in a propaganda war than in a hot war. And they call this soft power, right? I mean, if Russia has RT and Sputnik, and England has the BBC,
which should be allowed on our channels, by the way.
China has what CBTN, I forget the acronym, but they have their own English language services as well. Shouldn't the U.S. also have state media?
Well, this doesn't preclude it from existing. It just says that American taxpayers don't have to pay for it, and it doesn't become a target.
Well, then it's not state media.
I'm going to come back to my original point, which is that this has been a target for Republicans for as long as I've been cartooning. So take the target away. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I certainly think that, like you said, on the national level, I never understood why NPR stations allowed themselves to be a target for what, 1 or 2% of their budget. Woo! Like I would be like, if someone was trying to tell me what to draw, but Ted, we're paying you 2% of your salary, I'd be like, blow me. I mean, I agree with that, but I do think maybe we have a problem there in terms of rural access. I mean, rural areas are very underserved. They don't have high-speed internet. They don't have.
Well, they're becoming news deserts. Their newspapers are folding. So
yes, it's a great time to be a corrupt local politician in rural Oklahoma.
Maybe we should think about moving to Oklahoma.
That's a job for us.
Hey,
corrupt politician. We've studied corruption. We could do that.
Yeah, we can do it. I don't know if there's any question we can do it.
I mean, it's some of the stupidest people who've ever lived do it.
Oh my God, they're idiots. And one of my funniest conversations with my former boss at the Chicago Tribune, I had just moved up to Chicago and they had just indicted a local, I think it was St. Clair County, but it could be another county here in Alabama. And they were accused of stealing, are you sitting down, Ted? $2,500. And they went to jail. They got convicted and went to jail. I moved to Chicago. They got a guy, I forget what he was in charge of. He's in charge of sand or, dirt or something in Cook County. And he absconded with $12 million. And they weren't sure they were going to prosecute him. And so I asked my boss.
You always want to steal money from private corporations. In many cases, they won't pursue you.
Is that right?
Well, yeah. Like when I worked at the Japanese bank, I worked at the Industrial Bank of Japan Trust Company from 86 to 1990. And and there was a guy, very quiet, very nice man, who sat right behind my desk and like 4 feet away. And one day he wasn't at work. And it's like, what happened to him? And we came to learn within the next few days that $10 million was missing from the accounts. This was $1988. So it was real money, not like now where that'll buy an egg. So
to be fair, it's 3 cups of Starbucks coffee.
Maybe. So anyway, it was with our Zimbabwean dollars.
Without extra pumps. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, long story short, the FBI came to he had written himself a check and basically cashed it and disappeared. And he had a wife and kids, but he's didn't decide to bring them in on the scam. He said, boop. And so anyway, the FBI came by and interviewed us all about what we knew, which was truthfully nothing. And I asked my boss what happened. He's like, they're going to let it go. And he said, the FBI said, we can put this fucker's face on the front page of every paper in the world. But the company Tokyo was like, let it go. Because then it's like, what's the big question is like, IBJ can't be trusted to keep your money safe because they're idiots. And so it's better to just eat it.
So how much did you abscond with? I'm just curious.
I wish.
See,
Nothing.
Ted?
Nothing.
You disappoint me.
Yeah, I know. I've
No,
grifted, but not like that.
It astounds me. So anyway, with my story, I asked my boss, what the hell's going on here? $10 million bucks? I mean, Jesus. I mean, this person in Alabama just got convicted for $2,500. He goes, Scott, up here we're professionals. Welcome to the NBA. And he wasn't wrong. He absolutely wasn't wrong. So
yeah, no, it's like it's really funny. When I was in the 90s, when I was working for alt weeklies, and I remember talking to some of the investigative reporters, and they would literally sort of get into fights about, which of their municipalities had the most corrupt politicians. It's like, oh, no. We have the best corrupt people. I know the Daily guys did that too.
Oh, I used to have running gag arguments with my friend Marshall Ramsey, who was the editorial cartoonist over in Jackson, Mississippi, and we had stupid governor bingo, and just to see, because he had an idiot, I had an idiot, and we just wanted, just competing idiots to see who would rise the level of idiocy. And it was
moron.
It was neck and neck. It was neck and neck.
It's so hard. Really. All right. Well, so I think we're complete here. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We have good viewership today. They're quiet, but they're out there. I see the numbers.
Thank you for listening.
A lot of people are watching and listening.
Wonderful.
And I guess most people are watching, according to the New York Times.
Oh my God!
Podcasts today, like 3 out of 4 people watch and don't listen.
Did you? But Ted, and this,
they watch, but they're really listening.
Ted, it's sort of like terrestrial radio used to be. You turned it on in the background, and if you heard Ted Rall, you go, huh? And you listen.
Asshole, Ted Rall.
But Ted sent an article that apparently these podcasts, they're broadcasts over YouTube and Rumble, are extremely popular. But what stunned me, Ted, most of all, is we're going to end this, and it's we last about an hour.
Yeah.
These things are 4 and 5 hours long. Ted, I don't want to do anything I enjoy for 5 hours. No offense.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I think we can think of some. Yeah. I don't want to fuck for 5 hours. I don't want to drink for 5 hours. I don't want to watch TV for 5 hours. I don't want to pet my cat for 5 hours. Those are my favorite things. I don't want to talk to you for 5 hours. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah, no, like I said, no offense. I love you like a brother.
I don't want to go to the beach for 5 hours. Really?
That I could do. I guess I could do that. Lie there, just.
It gets hot, man.
Yeah, it gets sandy.
Yeah.
And the Pelicans. Oh my God, the Pelicans.
Stop. And with that, all right. Now it's time for Scott singing out a component of the show. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm Ted Rall. That's Scott Stantis. Check us out at our respective places. You're going to see them scroll by. I'm at Rall.com. He's over at gocomics.com/Scott Stantis. And off we go.
Mana bum ba 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 bum. Mana bum ba ba bum. Mama bum ba da 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 bum ba da da waka 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 bum ba da da da. Mana bum ba.